We're at the quarter-final stage of the Champions League. Jonathan Wilson, Mark O'Hare back on board to help you find some value selections this week. And some tricky games nonetheless, but the guys will do their very best to find some value bets for you. Before we do that and talk about Wednesday night's games first, I want to tell folks about the Smart Betting Club Awards. We're nominated for Best Betting Podcast once again this year. We would very much appreciate your vote. If you're enjoying our content this season, please do check out the pinned tweet at matchbook.com, on Twitter, actually, Team Matchbook, and also in the bio of the podcast and on the YouTube channel. You'll find the link to vote on that. We've won it for the last 3 years, so hopefully making it 4 in a row, and we very much appreciate your vote in that. All right, guys, let's get to it. Wednesday night, we're going to talk Chelsea versus Real Madrid, first of all, and let's take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. Chelsea at 2.16, Real Madrid at 3.95, the draw available at 3.45. Madrid getting a half a goal start in the main Asian handicap line, so that's keeping the draw on side at 1.83. 5-6 in all money, and 2.25 is the total, and shaded towards the over at 1.84. Jonathan, look, Chelsea coming off that big loss of the weekend. But I would kind of question that in the past, because we have seen Tuchel teams, every now and again. We saw it last season too. They'll just have a wobbler every now and again. They lose to someone they're not meant to lose to, and lose quite emphatically. But we're still with them in this one. Yeah, we don't really fancy Madrid.
Yeah, I don't fancy Madrid. I don't think Chelsea was bad as they looked against Brentford. I think they haven't played as well as that run of, was it 12 wins in 13 games before Saturday suggested? Yeah, that makes it sound like they're sweeping teams aside, and they absolutely weren't. I thought Tuchel was maybe slightly mealy-mouthed in what he said about Brentford afterwards. That, they just scored their chance. Well, yeah, Chelsea conceded a lot of chances in that game. I mean, yes, the first 3 Brentford goals are all brilliant goals. And you wouldn't expect Brentford to score them. Well, they haven't been scoring them every week, have they? They've got 10 goals in the previous 11 games. Yeah. So there's a slightly freakish element to it in that regard. But that was nothing like Chelsea's strongest team. They knew they had this game coming up, which obviously is far more important to them. I guess there's a possibility this is the first sign of the uncertainty of where the club's going, beginning to filter down. But I think it's just as likely to be, in fact, probably more likely to be a repeat of what we saw last season when they randomly lost that game 5-2 at home to West Brom. And the following week they went to Porto and won 2-0 in a very composed, comprehensive performance. So I wouldn't be reading too much from Saturday into this game against Real Madrid. I think far more significant are the meeting last season in the semi-final when the legs were the other way around, but Chelsea were pretty comfortable winners. I thought they held Real Madrid at arm's length, and then also the way Real Madrid played away against PSG, which was really tentative, really timid.
Yeah.
You saw a way even they were taken apart by Barcelona. I just don't think this is a good Real Madrid side. For all that they're top in Spain, they're still very reliant on the same small core of players, mainly Benzema and Modric.
And Mark, what of that angle there? We have discussed in the past Spanish teams struggling against Premier League teams when the pace gets up there and the tempo. And look, they've had a break since that Barcelona game. They won at the weekend, 2-1 at Celta. Again, not pulling up trees there. Would you worry for Madrid in this spot?
Yeah, I do. I think Chelsea are stronger favourites than the market suggests to get through these 2 legs, and particularly at Stamford Bridge as well. I know Real Madrid had Benzema and Mendy return at the weekend, but it was far from convincing at Celta, and going away to Celta is a tricky game in La Liga terms. But the Clasico game was a bit of an anomaly because Benzema was missing and Ancelotti fiddled about with his team and tactics and kind of made a pig's ear out of things. But yeah, as Jonathan's right, the PSG game is a real concern. Not just that first leg either. I think for 85% basically of the 2 legs, they were absolutely nowhere to be seen, outplayed, outclassed, offered absolutely nothing. And it was only really the Donnarumma mistake that allowed Real Madrid to kind of get their tails up and believe that the comeback was on, and ultimately the collapse from PSG. But Modric and Benzema drove that. But as Jonathan says, they're still reliant on an aging midfield and quite a basic team. And I've been banging that drum for a while now. I've been a huge fan of European football, and particularly La Liga over the last decade or two. But there has been a shift towards the Premier League in terms of coaching and quality and physicality too as well. And I would also sort of echo the thoughts about last season's two-legged ties, where I thought Chelsea bullied Madrid for large spells, progressed relatively comfortably too. But yeah, I'm taking, just because the goal expectancy is quite low, and I think, judging by how Real Madrid took that first leg tie at PSG and just trying to batten down the hatches and get back to the Bernabeu, the goal expectancy is understandably quite low. So just because of that, I'm going to take a little bit more insurance rather than just backing Chelsea to win the match. I think Chelsea -1/4 on the Asian handicap around about 1.85 just gives you a little bit of protection if the game does end in a ball draw. I think it's always quite wise when the goal expectancy is low to just have that protection on side. But yeah, ultimately, I think Chelsea will be too strong for Real Madrid over 2 legs and probably on Wednesday night too.
Yeah, that angle in particular, so that will appear on the site of Matchbook.com. Chelsea -0.0/0.5, so you get 50% of your stake back if it is a draw. Jonathan, just before we come off this, your angle here would be Chelsea to win it under 4.5. Again, were you kind of assuming that Madrid are going to, come into this one in a cautious mindset like they did in the Parc de France?
Yeah, and I just don't think Tuchel's mindset is to hammer a team. I don't think he'd be going out trying to win it 3-4, 5-0. I'm really sort of startled at Chelsea as long as 2.16 to win the game. And we've regularly been backing Chelsea and under 4.5 goals in the game, because that's the way they play. So 2-0 is their sort of standard comfortable win. So to get an even more value out of the 2.16 added in the under 4.5 goals, so 2.36 seems to me incredibly generous.
Yes.
I take Mark's point that he's got the extra security there for 1.86. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just take Mark's. I think, Jonathan, I'm going to side with you in the Bayern game in this one. So let's take Chelsea -1/4 there at 1.86 as the official play. And we look forward to that one on Wednesday night. And also on Wednesday night, Villarreal plays host to Bayern at the Ceramica. And let's take a look at the betting as we have it at Matchbook.com. Bring up my screen there. I've lost my producer. The betting is 5.9. You can back Villarreal. Bayern at 1.64. The draw available at 4.5. Bayern are a 1-goal favourite on the Asian handicap at 2.04. And the total is 3. Mark, Bayern are nothing here for you, I presume, yeah?
Not necessarily, Sully. I guess.
Well, but hang on. Can I just ask? Sorry, I wanted to start off one way. You've got to be worried about those their last 2 losses, Villarreal too. Levante and Cadiz, both relegation candidates in La Liga. That's surely got to drop a few red flags.
Yeah, of course. And I think when you look at Villarreal, you see where they are 7th in La Liga and 12 points off the top 4 as well. They shouldn't really be in the same class as Bayern Munich. They're not in the same class as Bayern Munich, but something that's always kind of rears its head now and again is the Unai Emery factor. And, he is capable of masterminding some serious results in knockout football. It's his forte, really. And he's often kind of talked about as being an ultra defensive coach and being very pragmatic. He is pragmatic, but he offers more than just kind of a defensive mindset. He does have players here who could hurt Bayern Munich in transitions and counterattacks, particularly Arnaud Danjuma, particularly as well with Alphonso Davies still missing for Bayern. But Gerard Moreno, as we've talked about throughout the competition, is fit and available. He'll give them an outlet. And, Emery and his previous clubs have had an affinity really with almost chucking in the league when they're in European competition and going quite well. And I'm not saying that's the answer of those recent domestic defeats. They were really poor against Levante at the weekend, but this is a team that's well capable of raising their standards when necessary. However, from the flip side, yes, Bayern are frail and vulnerable defensively without Alphonso Davies as that kind of backup defender. Nagelsmann's even tried to use a back 3 at times to remedy things, but I think having Leon Goretzka back in the team just changes a lot for Bayern. His partnership with Kimmich gives them such a strong platform in the middle, allows a bit of a platform for the front 4 to work their magic, if you like, and it just improves things from a balance perspective as well, defensively too. So I think his inclusion does change the complexion on this game for me. I would have normally kind of come into looking to back Villarreal with a goal and a quarter start. You can't because the market's already too sharp to that. But Bayern ultimately have won 26 of the last 29 Champions League games, which is quite hard to sort of dismiss. And I thought, well, if Villarreal are going to have an opportunity to progress, surely they need to make a stand in the first leg in the home ground in Spain, and they'll be well aware of Bayern's sort of weaknesses and frailties. So I expect them to cause problems in counter-attacks and transitions, and I really wouldn't put them off getting a goal here. Bayern defensively have not been sound for quite some time, but you kind of back Bayern to see the game through. So it's a really tricky game, a fascinating game I'm looking forward to, but it's not one I've got a really strong opinion on, and that's why I kind of went for Bayern to win and both teams to score at 3.3. Just felt like a nice price to sort of cheer on if you've not got a major interest.
Jonathan, the Julian Nagelsmann regime at Bayern, we can't really judge it on a Bundesliga title, so it will be judged on the Champions League. Obviously, Hansi Flick has gone now, and he won it, 2 years ago as well in that COVID stretch. But what do you make of their chances, even bigger picture outside of this? Obviously, if they get through here, they'll most likely have Liverpool in the semi-final. But what are you thinking of this Bayern team?
I just think it's very hard to tell because they just aren't tested regularly. I mean, the game against Salzburg concerned me from a Bayern point of view, but that was a game where there was no Goretzka, where Nagelsmann went to a back three. Salzburg got in regularly behind the wing backs. I presume he won't do that here, and if he does, then Danjuma absolutely can cause big problems. So I think the big doubt about them is really just about the squad. Their squad is not as deep as that of City or Liverpool or even Chelsea. And so if they do get a couple of injuries, if Kimmich went, for instance, then they've got huge problems. If Lewandowski's out, they've got huge problems. So they are slightly reliant on a couple of key players remaining fit. But them at their best, then they've got as good a chance as anybody.
Yeah, right. Well, in terms of a bet here, Jonathan, if you want to be with Bayern, obviously, look, they're very short in the match odds. Where would you be looking to place your money?
Bayern and under 4.5 goals in the game. I know they are capable of blowing sides away as they did to Salzburg at home in the last round. But if you look at their 4 away games so far in the Champions League this season, a 4-0, a 3-0, a 2-1 wins, the 1-1 draw against Salzburg. So they haven't gone over the 4.5. Villarreal, I think naturally their tendency is to try and keep things tight. None of their home games in the Champions League this season have been over 4.5 goals. So Bayern to win under 4.5 seems to make sense, which is 2.11.
Yeah, it's actually been nibbled in a small bit, Jonathan. Clarity, 2.02, but not a bad price at all. And Mark's selection is Bayern and both teams to score. And you know what? If he comes out with that back three and the wing backs are Gnabry and Kingsley Coleman, then I don't know.
Danjuma will make hay, absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And Mark's bet all of a sudden looks pretty good. But let's take Bayern to win in under 4.5 at 2.02. Looks a solid selection there. All right, move on to Tuesday night and Man City versus Atlético. I don't know if you've heard, this is Pep Guardiola against Diego Simeone. It's not really spoken about in the last couple of days, which is great to see, but we won't really talk about that at all. 1.37 you can back City here. Atlético at 10.5, the draw available at 5.4. Atlético getting a goal and a half start. So obviously if City win by 1 goal, you still get paid on Atlético here in this market at 1.86. 2.75 is the total and slightly shaded towards the under. Jonathan, I kind of wonder, there, in terms of narratives of this one, there's going to be plenty thrown out this week. And, City, the swashbuckling entertainers, the attacking side, and this kind of, the anti-hero of Simeone, defensive football. I don't think it's that simple, though. Is it really? This isn't really attack against defense, because to be fair to Atletico, they have kind of opened it up this season a bit.
Well, it's not just that. I just don't think City are this sort of gung-ho entertainers. I think control is the thing Guardiola wants first and foremost. It's just the way he does it is through retaining possession and through positional play rather than by sitting deep and absorbing in the way that Simeone does. I don't know if you've seen Guardiola's press conference this morning, but he's clearly not happy by all the talk of him overthinking games. That he's come out and said, yes, I overthink. That's why my results in the Champions League are so terrible. I'm going to have a think tonight, then I'll pick 12. So it's good to see he's handling that side of things well. But I think, the fact is, the last time he played against Atletico was that semi-final with Bayern in 2016, which I think is the game that has led to these very odd selections against Liverpool in 2018, against Lyon, and then in the final last year. That was a game where Bayern lost 1-0 in Madrid, having probably been the better side, although they came under a bit of pressure late on in that game after he brought Thomas Müller on. Then the home game, they absolutely battered them, 1-2-1. And
away goals,
so went on away goals, and Torres missed a penalty late on, but would have made it 3-2 in aggregate. And I think that's where his sort of paranoia about counterattacks has really come from, which is what underlies the using Gundogan wide on the left against Liverpool, or not picking a holding midfielder to try and make them better in possession against Chelsea last year, or the back three against Lyon. It's all about how do I stop teams countering, and that's what sort of, for me, elevates Guardiola for above just being a great coach to being this sort of great tragic hero. That he the way he plays is brilliant, but it has this, I don't even want to say a flaw, it has this vulnerability that there is space in behind because they push up so high. And the fact that that's now his concern about that has led him to sort of undermine what he's best at. Now, I actually think in the last sort of year and a half, maybe even longer than that, City have got pretty good domestically at stopping teams countering. If you watch the way they play, they regularly get 5 outfielders behind the ball. They create that sort of 3-2 shape, and then the other 5 in front of them. And you sort of think, if he just trusted that, 95% of the time, he'd win anyway. But it's that 5% which seems to gnaw away at him. So he moves away from what they do well domestically. I mean, the flip side of that is obviously the teams he's playing late in the Champions League are better than teams he faces in the Premier League. And if he went on and on and on, losing in the Champions League to goals scored on the counter, then we'd be saying, well, why isn't he taking action? So in that sense, from a perception point of view, he can't win. But I find it fascinating watching how uptight he gets about this kind of thing. And the fact he's already talking about it suggests that he's feeling that pressure now. And that gives me a slight, having been pretty confident that City would win this, I now have a slight doubt having heard that press conference. I'm not changing what I said before the press conference.
Yeah.
It's sort of thing. Oh God, it's Simeone's in his head.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, this is only their 4th meeting. They only met once with Barca and Atlético as well. Mark, what are you making of this one? First time meeting between these sides. They're a big price, Atlético. Look, I'm not saying they're going to win the game, but they're a big price at double digits, 10.5. In terms of, like, obviously they came to Old Trafford. They've been pretty good away from home. They came to Old Trafford a couple of weeks ago and they got the win. But this is a whole different beast here in comparison to that Manchester United side.
It is, yeah. I thought they were slightly too big as well. If anything, I think the market's slightly too tilted in City's favour. I had them closer to a 1.45 shot than they are now. Liverpool played them at Anfield earlier this season and went off 1.65 against Atlético. They duly won the game 2-0 very comfortably as well, limited Atleti to 0.3 expected goals. But I think Atleti have come a long way since then. The big issue, I think, for the visitors is Jose Jimenez hasn't travelled. The centre half, he's very, very key to them. He's had a injury-plagued season. He'd come back in and they looked a lot more assured with him alongside Savic, but he'll be missing, which is a damaging blow. So I still expect Atleti to sort of go back to old school Simeone style here and performing a deep line defence, 2 low blocks basically, and trying to nullify the danger and plan the counter-attack with João Felix, who's had been in fantastic form.
Some great form,
this Canada year. Antoine Griezmann as well. So 2 players who are top quality if they get the opportunities, and they will get an opportunity at some point. It's whether they can be clinical enough to make them count. So I wouldn't completely rule them out here at all. But ultimately, you would expect City to be too strong. It's what they tend to do. I just wonder whether Simeone would take a 1-0 defeat before the match, and I think he possibly would. I think he'd fancy their chances to go back to Madrid and turn the tide in the second leg. But everything we saw at Old Trafford, I think we'll see again. I think we'll see Atleti try and spoil the party, gamesmanship, cynicism, whatever you want to call it. I think it'll be in its droves really, just to try and slow City down, disrupt the rhythm that they try and get into, and disrupt that control. But City are Champions League favourites for a reason. They're absolutely fantastic when they're in good form. So I'd back them to win the game, but I think Atleti can be competitive. So City to win under 3.5 goals, odds against price 2.16. Never enjoyable opposing goals in a City game.
No,
but we talk about it many times. First leg knockout tie, Atletico Madrid, Diego Simeone. You kind of have an idea how this match might go. And I had a little look. the last time an Atlético Champions League knockout tie featured 4 or more goals in 90 minutes was 2014, and it's never actually occurred in one of the first leg ties either in his reign. So things do tend to be quite tight and competitive first time around.
That's a fair old start, Mark. City to win and under 3.5 so is available at 2.16, and that'll be our official bet for the team. All right, let's move on to the final game we're going to cover this week. Obviously, Benfica and Liverpool also on Tuesday night from the Stadio de Luz. The current betting as we have it at Matchbook.com. No major surprises here to see Benfica almost at double digits at 9.6, Liverpool at 1.43. The draw available at 5.2. Benfica getting a goal and a quarter start on the Asian handicap at odds against 2.02, and 3 is the total. Just 2 clean sheets and 10 for Benfica, Mark. And look, we opposed them in the last 16 round against Ajax. I suppose in hindsight, we probably would love to see Ajax here in this spot, but they're not. This is what it is. It's hard to see them not conceding a couple here against Liverpool, right?
Yeah, I think we can get a decent comparison of where Benfica are by what Porto have been doing against Liverpool in recent seasons as well as this year. Porto are streets ahead of Benfica domestically, and they were sort of beaten 7-1 on aggregate in 2 group stage games against Liverpool already this season. It was 5-1 when they met in Portugal in 2018-19. Liverpool played Porto, won 4-1 in Porto, 6-1 on aggregate. The year before, they won 5-0 on aggregate, including a 5-0 away win in Portugal as well. Now, as I said, Porto are better than Benfica, so you have to bear that in mind. Liverpool were around 1.8 when they went to Porto in September, but I think they're stronger than they were in September. So I've got no real qualms with the price at all. Liverpool have gone off similar prices at Wolves, Everton and Leicester, and I think, without being disrespectful to Benfica, I think that's not too bad a comparison, actually, putting Benfica in the same bracket there. But yeah, they got a bit lucky against Ajax. They were outplayed in the first half of the first leg in Lisbon, and Ajax were then sort of architects of their own downfall after that. And then the second leg, a goalkeeping error. Ajax didn't create a load of clear-cut opportunities, but they definitely sort of deserved on the balance of play to at least take the game to extra time. But yeah, Bayern beat Benfica 9-2 over 2 legs in the group stage and accumulated an XG figure of almost 7.5. So yeah, I'd say Liverpool are just about on the same sort of level as Bayern, if not better. So there is potential for it to get ugly, but you don't want to sort of completely dismiss Benfica. Darwin Núñez is more than capable of causing a few problems. Rafa Silva as well. They have got players of quality, but Liverpool are sort of in a rhythm at the moment, which is hard to sort of turn them away either. They've won 15 of the last 17 matches in 90 minutes. And I think most impressively for me has been, and I think it's kind of been a little bit under the radar and underappreciated, but the defence. They've kept 12 clean sheets in that 17-game sample, conceding just 5 goals. So, and I think there's been a sort of transition from Liverpool first under Klopp many years ago when they were sort of deemed a heavy metal team. I think they've gone far away from that. I think they've learned from Man City and they've tried to sort of keep something in the tank for the final sort of key months of the season. They're much more business-like, and I think we've seen that in recent performances and results. But the squad and options they have available to them are just, you know, far and away too good for Benfica. You know, Salah's looked quite tired and fatigued, and I guess that's understandable considering the emotions he's gone through with Egypt twice now this year. But you've got the likes of Diaz who can come in, Jota, Firmino. It's quite scary, really. So, yeah, I backed Liverpool to win. It was a tie-up between Liverpool -1.25 or Liverpool to win and under 4.5 goals. Ultimately, I've gone with the bigger price, which is Liverpool and under 4.5. And then the other thing you've got to mention as well is the big game at the weekend. They're playing Man City. If they go 1 or 2 goals up, they quite easily could shut up shop and look forward to the weekend match. So, yeah, it's 2.02 for Liverpool to win and under 4.5, and a load of correct scores inside for that too.
Yeah, really does. Yeah, and it's odds against 2.02 as Mark says there. Jonathan, you kind of get the sense with this one, what will beat Liverpool in this one is probably their own complacency. But at the moment, you know, given, like Mark said, they have the motivation they have. They're just an efficient machine right now, and it's hard to see past them in this one.
Yeah, I mean, they've been nowhere near their best in beating Watford on Saturday, but still was comfortable.
Didn't need to be,
yeah. They've only lost once this year, and that was in a game when they were only 2-0 up from the first leg. So yeah, I think they've got the squad now that they haven't quite had under Klopp before. That I think for the first time you can say their squad maybe is the match of cities. Yeah, Benfica, I assume will sit deep against and play that sort of 4-4-1-1 with Gonzalo Ramos behind Darwin Nunez. But if that just means they get deep, well, the crossing of, I'm assuming Alexander-Arnold's back, which I think he probably will be. His crossing, that means it's dangerous to sit deep. You can't concede set pieces against them because you've got Van Dijk and you've got Fabinho, who are both very good from set plays. So I can't see how Liverpool have a struggle to score that Ajax did in the second leg. And Ajax got the 2 goals in Lisbon. So Liverpool under 4.5, I think makes complete sense.
Yeah, Liverpool under 4.5, 2.02. Look, I think it's looking like first legs were with the favourites of this one. But 3 odds against shots. Do a very quick recap of those. Liverpool to win an under 4.5 goals is currently available at 2.02. Man City to win an under 3.5 goals. You're pairing those up as well at 2.16. You're sensing a team here with Bayern and under 4.5 at 2.02. And we're taking Chelsea -0.25 on the Asian handicap. That'll appear on site at -0.0/0.5. Insights.matchbook.com for Monday afternoon for a quick recap of those selections and also to just check out where the markets are on matchbook.com as well if you need any guidance on that. All right, guys, your best bet. This is pretty straightforward. Normally we do a double, but you guys are so bullish about this selection. We just covered it there. Liverpool to win and under 4.5 is your joint selection this week for your best bet at 2.02. Great stuff, guys. All right, we'll be back next week, the 11th, to cover the second legs. Hopefully we'll have a couple of contests to preview. We won't have any kind of Man City Sporting kind of situation from a couple of weeks ago. That wasn't a lot of fun previewing that second leg, let me tell you. Don't forget, pin tweet at Team Matchbook on the Twitter account if you want to vote for us in the Smart Betting Club Awards. We very much appreciate it. And also in the podcast bio and on the YouTube bio as well. You can find the link. We would very much appreciate your vote. My thanks to Jonathan. My thanks to Mark. We'll be back again next week for the second legs. Best of luck with your bets, and we'll chat to you then.